When shading with pencils, it's important to understand how different pencils and gradations can be applied to create a wide range of values. We are going to practice shading a sphere and learn some art vocabulary. For this project, you're going to need a 2B pencil, a 4B pencil, your eraser, a pencil sharpener, and a ruler. Before getting started, let's divide the bottom quarter or page, the line. In this section, we're going to put our vocabulary. The first vocabulary word is contour line. We're going to draw the contour of a circle. The contour of a circle is the 2D name for our 3D object of a sphere. As artists, when we take a 2D object and make it into what looks like a 3D object, we're creating an illusion. This is all done with shading. Somewhere in the center of that top part of your page, draw your circle. It's okay if your circle is not accurate. You can go over it multiple times and erase any of the lines that don't match. This takes practice. If you're really frustrated, you can use a compass. Don't forget, contour lines mean the outline of an object. All objects have contour lines. Now, before we get started, we also need to do a value scale. I'm going to choose my 2B pencil to start and pressing really hard on one side and slowly easing up on that pressure, keeping my hand consistent, getting lighter and lighter and lighter. Try not to leave any gaps. We're going to see our nice value scale. Our hope is, by the end, our sphere will contain all the values in this scale. Somewhere in the middle is what we call our midtone. Let's write the word midtone here. The midtone is the halfway place between the darkest value and the lightest value. Let's take our pencil and create a nice soft midtone, the value that is halfway between the darkest and lightest on our sphere. Try to keep your pressure equal, no gaps, and keep it the same all the way. All objects have a midtone. Unless an object is white, then it would have a lighter range of midtone. Before even shading completely any object, a midtone is placed on an object so that you can gauge how light and dark it needs to get for the different values. There. Once you're done, you can use your finger to smudge and blend your value. The next word we want to write down is light source. We're going to draw a light source in the top right corner. A light source is any object that provides light and casts the light onto an object. We'll just do a fun little light bulb, shining in the corner. This is our light source. The next word is what we call low tone. In some art books, it's called the shaded area. To do this, we need to work in the darker range. I'm going to label this L for low tone. You can change to your 4B pencil for this range to get it even darker. You can see how it'll come off a lot easier because the graphite is softer in this range. One of the things we know about a low tone is that the low tone always is the opposite of the light source. So in this case, we have a light source in the top corner, so we know the opposite is somewhere here. Circle or sphere is sitting on a table, there's a point that it touches the table right on the bottom center. Somewhere above the top, the light is going to flood over to this point, but from this point onwards, we will see a section over here that would be in darkness. We're going to use our 4B pencil to shade the darker value in this section. Try to go in the same direction as your sphere. Now it looks kind of funny having this sort of crescent moon. We need to now blend and move between all the different values from here to the midtone and see if we can reach that midtone somewhere about here so it looks consistent. So let's see if we can do that. Going from one side to the other, we're going to get lighter and lighter and lighter with our pressure until it reaches the midtone. We're going to do the same all in this section. This is why it's important not to have any creases or lines, and try to see if you can make it as smooth as possible so that you can't tell where the crescent moon was originally. Okay, there we have a nice, slow value change from the low tone all the way to the mid-tone. If you want, you can take your finger again and blend it. Now our circle is slowly becoming a sphere. It looks a lot more 3D. The next word that we need to write is called the highlight. The highlight is always the brightest spot on an object. The light from the light source falls directly on the object. The highlight is on the same side as where the light source is coming from. So in this case, the light source is in the top right corner, so we know that in the top right corner of our object, we are going to have a highlight. Highlights are the brightest. Highlights are on the far side of the value scale, where it is extremely light. They will show as either white or close to white within that scale. To do that, we're going to take our eraser and erase out our highlight where it would be the brightest. I like softening the edges of that by just smudging in a little bit of value so it doesn't look too harsh. The next word is called our cast shadow. Cast shadow can range in tone and value. Let's make our cast shadow dark from the far end of our value scale. The cast shadow always falls opposite the light source at the same angle as the light source. So if the light is coming from the top right corner, we know the light is flowing from here in this direction. If we were to follow that line, it would lead us to the correct placement of our cast shadow. The point where the sphere sits on the table will also be our guide for the other side of our shadow. Let's use our 4B to fill in a darker tone. You want to make sure your shadow is not too far behind the sphere. Always remember that the cast shadow is opposite the light source. We could also say that it's opposite the highlight. It's on the same side as your low tone, and it goes in the same direction, falls in the same direction as the light that is streaming out from the light source. Because this spherical object is smooth, we can assume that light is still encroaching from around. Some of the area, not right by the point that it sits, but along the back end here, we might have a little bit of reflected light that bounces off from the table and onto the object. Reflected light is not usually as bright as the highlight. Here, it just leaves a hint of brighter tone to help separate the cast shadow from the low tone shaded area of our sphere. Let's write reflected light in our vocabulary. Here in a sphere, the light still can come around, and a little bit of it might bounce off of the table back onto an object. It will never be as bright as the highlight. It will sit somewhere here. Let's put R for reflected light. Now that we have finished drawing our object, let's label with arrows all our terms below to our sphere. Also, on a second page in your sketchbook, please write the vocabulary words with their definitions so you can refer back to them when creating tonal drawings. Your final sphere will look like this.